University Press, Dr. Clara Majos, Department of English, Loyola College, and Ms. Gayatri Vengat of SBOA Junior College. A special word of welcome to our moderator, Mr. N.V. Shankaran. Mr. N.V. Shankaran, popularly known as Mr. Jnani Shankaran, as a Tamil writer, journalist, and social activist, has been active in various creative and social fields. He has been a social activist, sharing platform with various women groups, human rights groups, and cultural groups. He has also translated Medha Patkar, Nikhil Chakravarti, Asghar Ali Engineer, Nagabhushan Patnaik, and George Fernandez and others on stage. Trained in theatre by Badal Sirkar, he has directed and produced over 50 plays in Bengali, Marathi, German, and English in Tamil. He is a founder member of Kuthu Pattarai, founder director of Pariksha, and also founder member of Veedi, Chennai's first ever street theatre. He directed and produced the first ever serial on Periyar, EVR. Besides producing several fiction serials and over 30 documentaries on social issues, he has been an active critic and debater on television news channels for over a decade now. He has traveled widely in India and abroad. I request Mr. Jnani Shankaran to commence the session.
Thank you and good morning, friends. Today, the theme for our panel discussion is gender and society. And as one of my very respected political colleagues, late Prime Minister V.P. Singh, once said, the last war perhaps that would have to be fought would be only on gender equity. All other wars would even get over, but still the war for gender equity would continue in this society. We get rid of the caste war, we get rid of the class war, we even know how to handle the environment, take care of environment, protect ecology, but even after this, would we still be able to achieve a parity between different sexes and achieve a gender equity? That's a question before us. So what prevents us from achieving it? And today, before me, there are any number of girls sitting and reading and studying in the school. Now imagine 100 years ago in Tamil Nadu in India, girls were not allowed to study. But for Dr. Muthulakshmi in Tamil Nadu or Rukmabai in Mumbai, Maharashtra, many women would not have gone to school or college later at all. Look at the history. When Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy had to go to school as a small kid, she was refused admission. She had to take recommendation from the Pudukkottai Maharaja for admitting her to the school. And in the school she was the only girl student. And so she would be seated on this side, all boys on this side, and in between a curtain separating both. And only the teacher can see both. Girls, the Muthulakshmi, the girl was not supposed to look at the boys, and boys were not supposed to look at Muthulakshmi. And imagine the plight of Muthulakshmi while walking all her way to school. What would have the society talked about Muthulakshmi at that time? One lone girl trying to go to school and studying. She didn't bother about all the catcalls, all the bad words that were uttered at her. And despite this, she went to school, became a doctor, founded our cancer hospital, founded the big women's movement in India, and she was the first women's legislator in Tamil Nadu. And because of Muthulakshmi, today lakhs and lakhs of girls are studying in Tamil Nadu. They have gone to school. So the struggle even to send you to school did not happen so easily. So many people have toiled, suffered, because society had certain norms which prevented a gender equity. Now we are trying to examine this panel discussion. What are these struggles? What are these obstacles that prevent us from achieving a gender equity? Now girls have come into education. Girls have come into different professions. Is everything over? Have we achieved parity everywhere? No, we still desire a lot of things yet to be done. Then what still remains there and why it remains there? These are questions which we have to examine today and find out and seek answers. And we have some excellent panelists here to probe into these questions. We have here with us first, Mini Krishnan. Ms. Mini Krishnan is editor of translations, Oxford University Press India, where she sources and edits fiction, plays, autobiographies and biographies from 14 Indian languages into English. So far, she has edited 84 full-length translations, 5 of which have won national prizes for the translation and are prescribed reading in universities across the country. She is a member, National Translation Mission, and member of Indian Literature Abroad, a Ministry of Culture initiative to promote Indian writers in the 6 UNESCO languages. She is also the leading publisher of peace and value education books for children in India, having conceptualized and edited 2 bestseller series for Indian schools, Garden of Life for Macmillan India, still under printing, and Living in Harmony for Oxford University Press. She publishes in the Indian Express, Statesman, The Hindu, the Deccan Herald, and Teacher Plus, and writes about translation, peace advocacy for children, and importance of interfaith initiative. And today Mini Krishnan is going to talk to us about gender stereotyping. Now, when we talk about gender and society, what is this society? It is not a faceless existence. You have to subdivide the society into so many segments. What are they? Media is part of society. Family is part of society. Politics and governance are part of society. Your entire administrative structure is part of society. All your policy planning is part of society. And your religion and caste are part of society. So all these put together form the society. And each of these branches of the society have been stereotyping women in their own ways. Now let us hear Mini Krishnan to understand more about gender stereotyping. Mini Krishnan.
Good morning. Good morning to all of you. I'm here by default, really, because first of all, I must thank Mr. Nyani for that rousing introduction. I just sent a few lines. I think somebody did some research and made up the rest. I'm delighted to be here and to share dais with such distinguished people. Not only Mr. Nyani, whom I've heard of for a very long time, but Professor Clarama's father was somebody I had the privilege of publishing when I was working in Macmillan's. Talking of attitudes, talking of stereotyping, I still remember the way he entered my office room. He didn't go straight to business. He always asked about my family first, and then we began to talk about his work. It's something I remember very well. And after he passed away, I asked for his photograph. I still have it, Clarama. I wish to thank Mrs. Rajeshwari, the principal here, because when I came to meet her to talk about the importance of value education in schools, we fell to talking about literature as well. And I think when she read a couple of things which I had written or something, it struck her that she could invite me. Normally, a publisher, an editor, works behind the scenes. All these prizes, all these books that were mentioned. It is my role in life to promote, to push, to source, to find out, and then to publish. Publish, which means to make public. So I'm pleasantly surprised to be singled out as a speaker. Normally, it is my writers who appear as speakers, and I who promote them. This is a unique opportunity for a publisher to speak. I have several thoughts about what to say. And I was reminded when I was a young girl in school, which was about 100 years ago. Swami Chinmayananda came to speak in our school, and we had fixed, this was Baldwin Girls' School in the 1960s in Bangalore, when he was not yet a very famous person who had set up the mission. And just the morning before on which he was to speak, my school captain called me, I was about 10 or 11, and said, you know, we've changed the topic. You go and tell him, we don't want to face him, you go and tell him, your father knows him. My father and he were classmates. So I went to Swamiji and I said, Swamiji, we have changed the topic. So Swamiji said, is that so? He said, you keep whatever topic you want. I will say whatever I want, whatever I wish to say. So like that, I've come with some ideas. Picking up on what Mr. Nyani said about Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy, it is interesting if you read a very short history of hers, which 2 or 3 people have written about, Gopal Gandhi including. Her mother didn't want her to go past school. It was her father who supported her wish for study. And because the Raja Pudukkottai was married to an Australian woman who she supported, she found the money. The father brought Dr. Muthulakshmi, I mean, she's not doctor at that time, his daughter to Madras, admitted her. She used to sit behind a screen right through her college years. And there's a marvelous description when it came to the Viva was the direct interview for the exam. The the examiner wrote the answers from behind the screen. What do you say? The answers came like bullets. She was so good. So one of the things I want to say is, while there is in biology sex, gender is a cultural thing. Gender is what has been created by society, to echo Ms. Nyani, created by systems. Sex is the biological thing. Please keep the two things different. And no South Asian language do you have 2 separate terms for these 2 ideas. It is from the West that you have gender and sex. Here we have only linga, and then we add things to it. So it's a very strong, deeply rooted notion of what it is. The other thing I'd like I wanted to open by telling you, some years ago when I was in Macmillan's, 1997 was the 50th year of India's independence. So I started doing small books for children on the first patriots of India. I had Kattabomman, I had for Tamil Nadu, Palashi Raja for Kerala, then I had Tippu Sultan, Karnataka, and Rani of Jhansi. When the Rani Jhansi book was released in Jhansi, at the foot of that statue, I can't remember his name, he was a school principal. He said all sorts of nice things about her and said how brave she was. And then he said, he made the mistake of saying, though she was only a woman, the whole audience stood up and walked out of the venue. So if anybody asks me which is the most memorable release function I've ever organized, it was the release of that tiny book, Rani of Jhansi. Because there was a strong feeling that you cannot say only a woman. What is this thing of only a woman? The 1 or 2 other points I would like to say is that if you look at all the systems which control society, the law, education, religion, of course, which, all these things are highly patriarchal. So I want the youngsters of today, I'd just like to give you 1 or 2 thoughts to go away with. The question is of sun worship, S-U-N and S-O-N. Sun worship is deeply ingrained in all of humanity. Half the world's population is in virtual slavery because there is a deep-rooted notion set in place by the hegemony of patriarchy. We are all victims of patriarchy, not just the women, I would like to emphasize. Boys are also victims. When a child is small, the girl is encouraged, to be pretty, to dance and sing and please people and all that. The boys are told, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't be a sissy, don't cry like a girl. I have a twin brother. I know how we were raised. Though there was a lot of equality when it came to food and education and all that, there was definitely a distinction between Ravi can do this and Vinny cannot do that. Vinny cannot climb walls, but Ravi can. Ravi might climb a tree, he can run, he can jump. Cycling, I remember the first great breakthrough in my house was cycling. First, my brother was given a cycle. Then I fought and campaigned and all that, and I also got a cycle. But it was not an automatic thing. So, although we were twins and raised in very similarly, discipline, everything was the same, there was a difference. So, a boy who is dreamy, a boy who has, all boys have a very, very sensitive side. They also have the feminine qualities. Girls definitely have masculine qualities. They can be extremely aggressive. They know how to be strong. They know how to protect. Try touching a newborn pup or a newborn kitten. I mean, you don't have to go to a tiger to face the wrath of a tigress. The way a tigress, why is the thing that, Nariman, why is the thing that as ferocious as a tigress? You won't hear as ferocious as a tiger. The tigress is more ferocious than the tiger when it comes to protecting the young. That's how nature has made, it's nature's plan, because the future generation, the stakes are more with the woman. If the woman does not look after the newborn, there is no hope for the future generation. So this is a program. There's no getting up beyond that. But the caring instincts in a boy have to be nurtured from a family. If a boy is told, oh, don't bother, that's not your job, there is where the damage begins. When a boy is taught to be unfeeling, encouraged to ignore another's pain, and told you don't have to help your sister or you don't have to help your mother, these are the stereotyping. So one of the points of value education, which mixes very well into the gender perspectives that I'm trying to talk about, is that it's not just equality or parity, it is recognizing the feminine in the other and recognizing the masculine in the other. Both are great qualities. I would like to just read, because this is to do with literature and from the literary point of view, I'd like to tell you, this is a translated passage from one of the oldest women writers living today. Her name is Devaki Nilayam God. She is a Nambudiri woman that is in Kerala, the highest caste there. She has written a very short passage in one of her memoirs about how things used to be when, 70, 80 years ago. And then I'll come back to the modern age where Anita Desai has written something, not very different. When a boy was born, there were joyful sounds made, and all the neighboring illams, the big houses, knew that it was a boy. But when a girl was born, they would just go from house to house and knock very softly on the door. Kutti janichu, pannana. Just that. So, womb to tomb, there is the downgrading and a feeling that they can be, in some sense, disregarded. And when you live with disregard, when you live with disrespect, you gradually learn to disrespect yourself also. This is all my due, I don't need to do anything else. I want to read a passage from Anita Desai's book, Fasting and Feasting. There are two sisters, one is Uma, one is Aruna. They have a tyrannical father and a mother who's afraid of the father. Finally, fortunately for the mother, she has a boy child. She has a baby boy. And here is a description. And I think there is some sort of autobiographical element here. This is a description of her papa in the hospital. His face was quite contorted with the effort, and perspiration broke out on his neck and soaked his shirt. He was so overcome when he saw his son. He allowed himself to express his feelings only by uttering sharp orders to the nurses and to the ayah, even to helpless mother. Then he hurried his daughters away almost before he had really looked at his son. Arriving home, and this is what Aruna and Uma remember forever. Arriving home, however, He sprang out of the car, raced into the house, and shouted the news to whoever there was to hear. He is otherwise a very dignified man. Servants, elderly relatives, all gathered at the door and then saw the most astounding sight of their lives. Papa, in his elation, leaping over 3 chairs in the hall, one after the other, like a boy playing leapfrog, his arms flung up in the air, his hair flying. "A boy," he screamed, "a boy! Arun, Arun," at last. It turned out that when a second daughter had been born, the name Arun had already been chosen in anticipation of a son. It had had to be changed in disappointment to Aruna. Uma and Aruna in the portico drew together, awestruck. Uma never overcame her awe of that extraordinary event, really far more memorable than the birth itself. As for Aruna, it could be said to have started a lifetime of bridling, of determined self-assertion. I'd like to ask this audience if they know how many chairman of the UGC has been a woman. UGC was set up in the 50s. The University Grants Commission, the commission that controls higher education. In all the years, there has been only one UGC chairman. In all the years of the Sahitya Academies, regional academies may have had the occasional woman president, even that is very rare. There has never been a single woman president of the Sahitya Academy. It has always been men. As for Chief Justice of India, the same thing. Can any woman born ever hope to be the Pope? Can any woman ever hope to be head of any of the matams? Why not? But no. So you see how strongly patriarchy is in place. What we as women need to do is to accept the biological part. Don't accept the cultural part. Stand up for your rights. You don't have to be aggressive. You just have to be firm. You just have to be strong. For this, I'd like to, then again, you see, speaking from the literary angle, because that's really my purpose in coming here, I'd like to give you 2 instances of how 2 very famous writers have militated against this. And taking from I'll take 3 writers, taking them from our own literatures. Navnita Dev Sen describes in Bengali how Sita says, and I think I brought the passage. Oh, I haven't brought it. Anyway, I will tell you from memory. She says, Sita says, using, of course, all these people use the myths. I'm going to use the most popular mythology, the Purana, the Ramayana. She says, Sita says, why is it that I don't have parents? I was found, this is a 16th century Bengali work. By the way, in Bangla, there is a saying, unhappy the man whose cow dies, and happy the man whose wife dies. Can you believe it? In Bangla, there is a saying like that. Anyway, in this poem, 16th century rewrite of the Ramayana, there is, Sita says, I was found at the edge of a plough. I don't know who my mother is. I don't know who my father is. I feel so alone. I feel so alienated. I don't have brothers. I don't have sisters. The poem goes on to say that when a woman leaves her house, and as she grows up, there's all this talk of, what to do with her, what to do with her. It's too much of a problem for the house to have this loose cannon, this bomb waiting to go off. And when she goes to her in-laws' house, she neither belongs there nor she belongs in her mother's house. So she feels a great sense of loneliness. And this is what, not biology, This is what culture does. This is what society does. The other story I have is Pudamai Pittan's marvelous story. I'm sure you know. The story of, as you all know, we all know the story, how when Sita and Rama returned to Ayodhya, because somebody casts a doubt on Sita's chastity, Rama is forced to send her away, or he's obliged to as king. And of course, there are feminists who militate against this and say, how could he have done that to his pregnant wife? Well, Pudamai Pittan puts a marvelous twist, and he has this lovely story in which there's a middle-aged Sita in the forest, and as she's walking along, she hears some marvelous music coming from somewhere, and she finally locates the music in a hut. She enters the hut and finds, who does she find? She finds the middle-aged Ravana there. So Ravana says, when she sees this Ravana says, oh, I've been waiting for you all these years. And he's playing a huge veena, the Rudra veena, which most people can't even pick up. And then she says, I thought you died. Now remember, Pudamai Pittan is critiquing the great epic and making fun of it. And so Ravana says, I didn't die. That was just a Maya Ravana. I did it just to please your husband, to let everyone think I died. I came here to wait for you. Then he says to her, I thought you died. I thought you disappeared. I thought you went into the earth. She says, no, that was the Maya. That was not me. I'm still here. Then she says, I want to play the veena. I want to learn to play the veena like you. So he says, okay, sit down. So she sits in front of him, and he picks up the veena to give it to her. And she says, don't give it to me. Just put it down on the ground. I will pick it up myself. Have I got the story right? I may have missed out a few things. The other story is by the Malayali writer Sarah Joseph. I'll skip the Puranic story. But she talks, she's written a lovely short story called Balidan, and the translator and I, it's really about Mary, wondered how to translate that title. Translating titles itself is a very difficult thing. So finally we made it the Passion of Mary. Everybody has heard about the Passion of Christ, but not the Passion of Mary. So that whole story is about all the portents that Mary feels 2 days before Christ is captured by the Romans and crucified. It is a really, you horripilate when you really, your hair will stand on end when you read that story, because she feels the pain of her son before the pain actually happens. Everything in nature also collaborates to give her the sense of what is going to come. And that, again, from a literary person, is called the Passion of Mary. I'd like to read 2 poems to you. I know that the other speakers are really going to give you the sociological, all the outer sociological aspects. I made up this thing to share with you, though I'm sure somebody else has said it before. History is his story. To get a complete picture of the world, we also need her story. And I put it to you that literature tells you this story. I'm going to read 2 poems, one translated from Telugu, one translated from Kannada, before I wind up. The poem in Telugu is by a writer named Mahajabeen. She married a Hindu. It was one of those marriages that shook the earth. She wrote a poem called Physical Geography. Let me read it to you. The moment I am told it will burn me, I want to embrace the sun. Just once. That's how I am. I always wanted to do what is prohibited. I erase boundaries. The sky is my limit. I lifted the veils of waves of blue seas and studied the freedom of water. I swam against the current and joined the battle of the waves against the ocean. Now I have to go get the essence of the thundering clouds and rub them into the vocal cords of my people, the marginalized people. And the last lines, sometime soon I will occupy the ocean. I will sow my dreams in it. This is translated by Velcharu Narayan Rao. Mahajabeen has 2 centers in Hyderabad, one for women who are abused and continuing in their marriages, and for their children, and one for those girls who are sold by their parents to these elderly visiting Arabs. Because these Arabs come saying, we will take care of your daughter, we will give her a great time, she will have a wonderful life, but they will be much, much older than the girls. And since the girls are illiterate and otherwise unable to fend for themselves, the poorer Muslim families literally sell their daughters to these men. And really they're taken away, and very little is really heard about what happens to them once they go there. Because when they go there, they find out there are many more women, they are not just the sole wives. So some of these women, when they manage to come away, Mahajabeen has a center to take care of them where they are trained, given some sort of vocational training to get on with their lives. This second poem is by Pratibha Rao. She writes in Kannada. There is a certain bitterness and sarcasm in it, but there is also the force of the woman who knows that she has hidden powers. It's called The Tigress, and she translated it herself. He is the animal trainer. He makes even the fiercest of fierce animals crawl, jump, stand on hind legs, just by the crack of his whip. He puts his head between the dangerous teeth of the tiger, pats his appreciation, waits in anticipation of the applause. Talking of applause, about a year ago when I was in Palghat, we had gone to tea, we had gone visiting at a time when the successful lawyer, advocate wife had just come home. The gentleman, the husband, works in a bank. He has fixed hours, he comes back. But Shailaja comes home, she makes the dinner, before she leaves she makes lunch, she makes breakfast, she finishes her work, she works late into the night. And when she came home, she had just actually won some case against a bank, against some corporate thing. So we all congratulated her on that. Her husband didn't quite like it, though he pretended to join in the appreciation. And when she served the tea, he said, whatever she is outside the house, she makes tea and the chapatis when she comes back home. So this is something like that. Pats his appreciation, waits in anticipation of applause. This tigress that roamed the deep jungle, terror of the forest, now sits cross-legged in front of him. Is she a tigress or what? Someone once asked her about it. She just smiled and brought out her long, sharp nails, hidden well under her paws, and scratched her head. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mini. See, as a cultural person, she put the whole perspective from a cultural construct, how gender is a cultural construct. And I was amazed at the kind of excerpts she quoted from different South Indian languages, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, from different languages. And literature, as you know, is a mirror of the society. And that's what the literature all the time reflects and shows the exact situation of women and men here. And during the initial remarks, Mini said, who are the victims of this gender bias today? Not just the girls, but also the boys. Every one of us. Everyone is a victim of this bias. And how do we get out of this victim? By a situation. Gayatri Venkat, your own colleague, as our topic linked with it. She wants to talk to you on men and women are not opposite, but complementary. Once men and women understand that they are complementary to one another, then the question of anybody becoming a victim is removed. And Gayatri is a student of class 12B of SBOA Junior College. She is a very creative person, an enthusiastic person who looks at the flamboyant and vivid side of life. She firmly believes that positive thinking is a golden formula to lead an exuberant life. Her interest lies in chemistry and she wishes to pursue chemical engineering. But she is good at painting, singing, dancing, and strategic thinking. She loves reading books, listening to good music, and playing mind games. And over to your mind games with us now. Come, Gayatri.
Thank you, sir. Every new day is another chance to change your life. A very good morning to one and all present here. I am Gayatri of class 12 and I'm here before you to substantiate on my topic that says men and women are not opposites, but they are complementary. Complementarianism is a theological view held by people that proclaims men and women have complementary roles and responsibilities in life. There are many people who will accord this fact. On the other hand, there are people who do not believe in this. Though there is a significant increase in awareness about the unjust and unequal sharing of responsibilities between men and women, reality manifests that this situation is same everywhere, irrespective of the developed countries. So why is this so-called mutual understanding and sharing of responsibilities important? And what are the factors that holds them back from being responsible? Sharing of responsibilities and mutual understanding is vital in the present day. This is because men and women contribute equally to the society and to the mankind. But when we take a glimpse of the past, we find that men and women's role in the society were not the same, but it has been changing for decades now. Traditionally, men worked outside their homes and they served as the sole breadwinners for the family. They were in some good positions, including being doctors, lawyers, politicians, and whatnot. Women, on the other hand, governed the domestic sphere. They were expected to stay home, raise children, and have an evening meal waiting for their husbands. And this activity could be witnessed in any house. If they did work, it was as a secretary, a nurse, or other stereotypically female professions. At that time, there were even times when women lost their individual dignity at the cost of respecting tradition. At that time, the great Mahatma Gandhi ji gave a practical and a dynamic advice. He said, "It is good to swim in the waters of tradition, but to sink in them is suicide." This graph took a major elevation when the women in US got their first taste of working during the World War II. When the men had to go to the wars, women had to go to the factories and return home only after the wars. These social changes caused a cultural revolution that found women pursuing jobs outside their homes. And now we stand at the threshold of the feminine era. And why is this mutual understanding and complementarianism still important? This is because it soars ability, capability, the effectiveness and productivity. This not only helps the society but also creates individual dignity. What holds them back from being complete is the factor called ego.
high-headedness, inability to understand the other, and so on. A latest study reveals that women are better than men in multitasking, but women still have to take care of the home front no matter where or what they work as. This expectation, this pressure from the patriarchal society complicates things for women. But on the other hand, it is heartwarming to see a change that is set in. In recent years, more men have expressed a desire to take primary responsibility of taking care of the children and also to help the women in domestic assistance. This does not mean the changes have been easy. Men have had to equally struggle for what masculinity means to them when they are not the sole breadwinners for the family. Women and men have equally struggled to attain this level. When there is equal productivity and endeavor from both the sides of the sexes, it is important that everyone must consider them as equal, irrespective of their gender. And the society must take the advantage of their combined efforts as they can enhance the amplitude of one another. Thus, I would like to conclude my speech by disclosing that men and women must understand their responsibility and try to complement each other for a better and a bright future. Thank you for this opportunity, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Gayatri. Gayatri made the theme with a very simple slogan, a mantra. The mantra is understanding each other. How do we understand each other? How does one man understand a woman or a woman understand a man? How does a boy understand a girl understand a boy? How do you understand each other? Understanding can happen only when you have two basic life skill qualities. One is self-awareness, understanding yourself first. Secondly, empathy. Understand the other person only when you empathize with the other person. The problem for boys in understanding girls is they don't empathize with the girl. For the girls, they don't empathize with the boys. So the moment we start empathizing, we're not talking about sympathy, we're talking about empathy. The moment we have an empathy, we start understanding each other. And once we start understanding each other, all the challenges before us can start dissolving. And there are too many challenges. And what are the challenges particularly for women today? That's the theme for Dr. Clarama Jose, will be our next speaker. And Dr. Clarama Jose is Associate Professor of English at Loyola College, Chennai, with nearly 30 years of teaching experience. She is the author of Feminisms, Silence and Language Towards Gender Sensitivity, and her favorite subject is feminist literature and theory. She has authored many papers on the same theme, and currently she is working on a book on feminist theory. When she is not reading or writing on feminism, she enjoys creative writing and painting. She is passionate about life and believes it is our collective duty to keep India clean and our women safe, and she'll tell us what are the challenges in keeping our women safe and keeping India clean.
Thank you, sir, for that introductory note, and good morning to all the lovely students here, parents, teachers, well-wishers, organizers of the program, my co-panelists, good morning, and thank you for calling me here. As an academic person, I will begin with what others have to say first before I go on to saying what I have to say. So can we have the first slide, please? The first slide is on. Is it on? Is it on? Yes. Please read that. A woman's life is hard in its own way. Yeah. A woman's life is hard in its own way, as women have always known, and men have rarely understood. The next slide. Life is hard for all. Nobody disagrees with that. Harder for women. Next slide. Society has always been male. Political power has always been in the hands of men. A point which our panelist Mini Krishnan raised. There's never, or very rarely been a person at the top post in nearly any institution. History holds, the next slide. History holds only the scantest records of the millions of nameless women who died under the fists, belts, boots, and cudgels of their men. Next slide. For a man's work ends at setting sun, yet a woman's work is never done. Next slide. The labors of early women were exacting, incessant, varied, and hard. If a catalogue of primitive forms of labor were to be made, women would be found to be doing 5 things where men did 1. Next one. Men, their rights and nothing more. Women, their rights and nothing less. Next slide. Nobody ever says to men, how can you be a congressman and a father? Next slide. The thing women have to learn is that nobody gives you power. You just take it. I repeat, nobody gives you power. You just take it. Next one. When women are depressed, they either eat or go shopping. Men invade another country. Next one. Men are allowed to have passion and commitment for their work. A woman is allowed to have that feeling for her man, but not for her work. The next slide is interesting. A bride at her second marriage does not wear a veil because she wants to know what she is getting. Next one. The beauty myth is not about women at all. It is about men's institution and institutional powers. Next one. As long as men continue to give points out of 10 to reward the extravagant display of female shape and humiliate the plain Jane, until they begin to listen to women rather than watch them when they speak, despite its victories, the real challenges of feminism remain. Yes, and one last one. Women live rather different lives from men. Equal opportunities do not necessarily ensure equality at home. Let me begin with my paper now. Gentlemen, ladies, in the course of my presentation this morning, what I hope to do to you is to appeal to your good sense, to your honesty, to your conscience. let me begin with a little story, not very different from what Ms. Minnie Krishnan told us about herself and her brother. The story goes like this. A city-bred boy and a girl visit their cousins and other relatives during the summer vacation. The girl is barely 4 years old and the boy is 2 years older. Their favorite sport is climbing wild fruit trees, munching raw mangoes, chasing after squirrels along with their cousins. Until one day they get tired of the usual games and the cousin comes up with a brand new idea. Let's play a new game. So the cousin takes them to a pond in which coconut fiber is left to soak for their curing before being woven into ropes for the carpet industry. There is a little island in the middle of this pond on which there is some innocuous vegetation. The cousin's game is very simple, it's just this. Let's stand at the rim of the pond and jump to the center, the island. Of course, the city children, and these children are from Madras, having seen very little water and certainly no pond, they are very excited. The cousin gauges the distance from the rim of the pond to the center and he jumps and he lands bang on the middle of the island. The girl and the boy from the city are very excited. They hold hands. This is good fun, says the boy, and the little girl does a jig in agreement. Let's jump together, they say, and on your mark, get set. Only this time they land plop right into the pond, their feet gets stuck in the sand and the waters go over their heads. Thankfully, nothing calamitous happens. They are pulled out instantly, the neighbors rush in, these children from the city are pulled out of the pond and nearly the whole village comes to know about it. But before the summer is out, the incident is quickly forgotten and the children go on to other games. But the little girl remembers till this day what her grandmother said on seeing her wet clothes. Why don't you learn to behave like a girl? Behave like a girl. Don't yell. Don't make noise. Comb your hair. Help mommy wash the dishes. Stop dragging your feet. Little girls are sugar and spice and all things nice. And when you are a woman, watch your step. Don't talk about sex. Don't talk about your body and its functions. No dirty jokes. No F words, no B words. Please leave that for the boys. Because when it comes to a woman, women should be graceful, women should be dignified, women should control their anger, because after all, you are a woman. You know, there is this, and Tamil cinema particularly, and maybe all cinema, but I'm familiar with Tamil and Malayalam cinema. There's this one song from one Kamala Hassan movie which keeps coming back to me. Kamban Yemandar, there is that song where, you know, there is one line which prescribes behavior for a woman. Aathiram என்பது பெண்களுக்கு எல்லாம் அடுப்படி வரைதானே. That is, your place is in the kitchen. Your emotions, we are not interested in it. Keep your anger inside the kitchens, upon your vessels maybe, but women should be graceful, women should be dignified. These are stereotypes imposed upon us right from the time we are born, right from the time we are children. And then there is another one which, a Rajnikant movie. I mean, he is a very popular actor, yes, of course, which means, he has a lot of power over the way we think and perpetrate these stereotypes. Where he talks of a woman in that, I think it is that Neelambari, that character, who is condemned for her anger, for her power, and he prescribes behavior for her. Dear everyone present here, this then is the first issue I wish to highlight. Girls and boys are treated differently and taught and brought up to cultivate these differences. This leads to the stereotyping of their roles. Those who conform are celebrated as normal and well behaved, and those who don't conform are either made to feel isolated or bullied into submission. The values that are upheld for women, such as the domestic passive virtues, only leads to their anonymity in the public sphere. I find this happening in my classes also. When you ask the students a question, the male students very spontaneously are willing to put up their hands and answer even if the answer is wrong. Whereas girl students are a lot more nervous, girl students are a lot more self-conscious, and even if they do know the right answer, are not willing to speak in public. So this anonymity in the public sphere, the woman who speaks and breaks out of this domesticity is singled out for different kinds of harassment. The sad fact about this is that though people are conscious of sexual politics and do reflect on how women are different from men in character and experience, women's studies is of interest only to those who are engaged in research. Our upbringing and education is so one-sided that men just don't want to get interested or involved when issues concern women. Years ago, when my then HOD, wanted to introduce new papers into the department, he turned to me and he said, "Why don't you introduce a paper on women's studies?" It was like as though, So I told him, yes, I'm willing to do it, but why don't you give me some partners, somebody else who will also work with me? And his response was, "But you are a woman, ma'am. As a woman, you can take the lead in this subject." So it's as though women's studies should be of interest primarily only to women. Eve teasing or any other issue in which women are victims is seen as a woman's issue and not as a violation of human rights. But believe me, most of us, including the men sitting here, would not be here this morning if it was not for the bitter battles that our foremothers fought, the humiliation and the rejection they endured so that we would live more equal lives. Our challenge then here is, men must get interested in the reality of women's lives. Men have colonized female space and called it their own. Men have colonized and controlled the female body and decided what they shall wear. In colleges, this is one big issue, dress code. And dress code mostly targets the girl student. And just for some kind of, in our college we have this, a long list of don't do not for girls. Boys can wear t-shirts with collars. That is the only rule. Shirts, formals, or otherwise t-shirts with collars. For girls, the list is long. No leggings, no jeans, no this, no that, etc., etc. And who are these policy makers? Policy makers invariably are men. That is why I say they have colonized and controlled the female body, decided what they shall wear, what it shall look like. They have decided what shall be the color of our skins. Is fair lovely? Is dusky sexy? Look at all the fairness ads. Girls cannot get married because they're not fair enough. Girls cannot get a boyfriend because they're not fair enough. And I think, these fairness ads equally targets men also, because it makes them look like, all that they are interested in is, women, the only thing women seem to be interested in is to get a boyfriend or a husband, the attention of men. And look at the slimness campaigns, the beauty pageants. They are racist, they are sexist, and humiliating to women. Men decide what work women shall do, whether they shall be paid at all. So this then is a third challenge. Take charge of your body. Slimness, fairness, being dark, I don't think we should be paying somebody to change the shape of our body just because somebody else is not very comfortable with the shape of my body or whatever. And because women are singled out for embarrassment and humiliation, they suffer from lower self-esteem. Challenge number 4, take charge of your mind. Don't let anyone reduce your worth. Low self-esteem has huge psychological implications. Women become, because of their low self-esteem, women become dependent on men and are totally helpless when men are not around. The flip side of this condition is that women, having grown used to depending on men, prefer dependency because it frees them from the responsibility of decision making. Let me ask you all, so many women sitting here, working women, how many women you know are really independent? How many of you can and do ride a two-wheeler, drive a car? How many of you depend on your fathers, your husbands, your brothers on a daily basis for your transport? How many of you need men to take care of paying the bills, dropping the children, planning the spending? Is the division of labor based on sex or convenience? I would say to all the mothers sitting here, train your young sons to participate in women's lives. Train your young daughters to be independent, take charge of themselves. Mind you, the point I'm trying to drive here is not about whether you can drive a car or whether you possess a two-wheeler. No. It is about female autonomy, about taking charge of one's own life, about empowerment, about using the power you have already been endowed with by nature and by law in an informed and socially relevant way. In fact, I think it was Gayatri who made this comment about when the men went to war, the women took charge of the country. I would put it in another way. The dark ages in history were golden ages for women. Because when the dark ages, the men went away to fight the war, the country, the establishments, the government, the organizations, the country had to run. And women, it was a golden age for women. When the wars were over, the men came back and sent the women back home. Women, the challenge, another challenge for women is that women have the potential for self-sufficiency, but have not made it a matter of daily practice. How many of you, how many of us will go to a doctor or a lawyer alone? How many women will go let's not even talk of doctor and lawyer. How many of us, if you're hungry, how many of us will go to a restaurant alone or a police station without male company? It's always like this, what will others think of me? How many of us are really free from self-consciousness? When did we last look into the mirror and celebrate our bodies and not mark its wrinkles? Just this morning I was seeing on TV one advertisement, I think it is Pond's or whatever, age-defying cream. So if you're 20 plus, you can use this cream. If you're 30 plus, you can use this cream. If you're 40 plus, you can use this cream. You know, it will take away all the wrinkles from your face. But they don't have anything for the 50 plus woman. So I had to shut down and prepare for this discussion this morning. When did we last look into the mirror and celebrate our bodies rather than mark its wrinkles? How many of us can say we are not burdened with the feeling of inadequacy and shame about our own bodies? A woman's body is her shame. It is a subject of bathroom graffiti and the object of male gratification. The beauty myth is a trap invented by business houses in which men are the stakeholders and money drivers, and women are the laborers selling their bodies, parading before cameras that churn out airbrushed pictures of blow-dried hair or whitewashed teeth. Men ensure that they will remain in control by forcing competition between women and keeping them divided from one another. Women, the modern woman, in spite of her career, in spite of her education, many of us are modern slaves, pliable consumers of patriarchal values, obsessed with cellulite, lipsticks, and age-defying products, never feeling beautiful enough. The caricature of the feminist as ugly and aging is resurrected to checkmate female autonomy and undermine imperceptibly, insidiously, all the ground that women have fought so long and bitterly for. And what you saw there on that slide, as long as men continue to give points out of 10 for an extravagant display of female shape and skin. I once happened to be part of the audience. I was writing an article for some local newspaper on some small beauty pageant. I ran away halfway through because of this extravagant display of skin. The humiliation of the plain Jane, and until they begin to listen to women rather than watch them when they speak, the real challenges of feminism remain. And to the career woman, I have some questions for you. How many of you are really free? Women hold up half the sky. We do 70% of the world's work, earn 10% of the world's wages, and own 1% of the world's property. My question is this: how much of what you earn is really your own? To what extent is your expenses controlled by men? Who calls the shots at home? Who is a capitalist? Who is a proletariat? Who takes the car? Who takes the bike? So if there are gentlemen here, dear gentlemen, please hand over your car keys to your wives. They will drive safer. Who decided who you will marry? How many children you will have? Whose life are you living? Whose body is it anyway? And do you need men to allow you to work? I mean, this idea is very interesting, you know. My husband allows me to work, and therefore I go to work. And every time a film star comes back after, a period of hibernation, there's a lot of news articles about how her husband has allowed her to go back to work. And divorces happen because husbands don't allow you to work after marriage. Who decides these things? How long will you allow other people to take the decisions in your life? Then, one of you gets a transfer, both of you are working, father, mother, husband and wife, both of you are working, one of you gets a transfer, the children are very young. Who gives up the job? What are we arguing here? The breadwinner argument. As if the woman's salary will not buy bread. We used to have this argument in college because Loyola is supposed to be, in the public imagination, it is a men's college. So, should women be given a job there? Are they not taking away the breadwinner's chance to earn bread? Some of us have always argued. Women's salaries are as important. They are not supplementary salaries. We are not supplementing. We are also earning a livelihood. So what is this argument about? Then, why is it that on most occasions the woman gives up the job when the man has to go on transfer? What is this argument about? Mother. You are the mother. The mother's duty is to the children. Are not fathers also in the business of nurturing? Why should nurturing be a mother's business alone? This brings me to the question of sexual and cultural politics and politics within relationships in the family. The gender war, feminism, has always surfaced in little skirmishes to be quickly suppressed because, after all, the good woman always puts family above her needs. Permit me at this point of time to make a sweeping statement. The history of feminism has been like an epileptic attack. It happens in fits and starts. It froths and foams for a brief while. Media burns for a brief while. Then after some time, the media gets a new story and all these other stories, the fit settles, everything goes on as if normal. Operative word, as if normal. The woman in public life has to continuously apologize for her presence there. She has to answer questions on why she wants a career over home. Even in the so-called forward-thinking countries, no one questioned Obama when he ran for the second term, but they won't give Hillary even a single chance. And here at home, however articulate, however confident, however efficient a female leader is, attention will first be on the person. Comments about personal appearance, etc. So the challenge is take women and women leaders seriously. They are there in the business of running the country, not there for a fashion parade. A woman has to keep excelling even to be acknowledged. A working woman has to run at top speed even to stand in the same place. And of course, there is a glass ceiling beyond which she cannot go. If there has been a woman at the top spot, it is usually the wives or daughters of men in power. And of course, a brilliant woman is a threat. Men know her power, and instead of acknowledging it, they react by wiping her out of the pages of history. History, her story. What Ms. Manip Krishnan suggested. History is full of the stories of men, their exploits. Where are the women in history? History must be rewritten to include her stories too. And I say all this to all the young girls gathered here. You have all read the story of Cinderella. Forget trying to fit into the glass slippers. Try smashing the glass ceiling instead. The real challenges lie there. The real challenge does not lie in catching a husband, but in working with equality and excelling even beyond men. Our interest in feminism and gender issues remains largely academic, and until we begin to see women's rights as human rights, we will never get anywhere. So, my appeal to everyone here, if you have felt the love of a mother, a daughter, a sister, a wife, and wished for their well-being, why is it that when the helpless woman in the neighborhood is being molested and paraded naked on the streets, you do not even raise a voice of protest? My father once fiercely protested a neighbor and a colleague who was beating up his pregnant wife. My father was told equally fiercely to mind his own business. My wife, I will do what I want to her. The message is this: wife as a man's property to do with how he wishes. How is it that we as neighbors allow these things, we live as if they do not impact us? In spite of the education, the advantage that education gives us, why do we not turn a hair when a neighbor sets his wife on fire? Why is it that when your neighbor's daughter walks back home from college and a group of hooligans in an auto throw her down to her death, you do not even think that she could have been your child? I am referring to a real life incident that happened in a local college about, say, 10-15 years ago, when there was a group of girls. It was this girl's birthday and she was taking her friends to the nearby restaurant for a treat or whatever. They were walking along this road, and it was afternoon. There was this group of men, young men, in an auto, probably excited at seeing this group of girls who were in their own world of laughter, giggling. They come, they knock this girl down, they dash against this group of girls. This girl falls down, she hits her head, goes into a coma, and within 2 or 3 days, she is dead. The matter is treated as Eve teasing. Is it Eve teasing? Is it as simple as Eve teasing? I think it is a matter for our conscience. Reaction, responding, activism, it is not something that is happening to somebody else's daughter. Why is it that we do not think that it could have been our child? Why did we let an Aruna Shanbag happen? Why did we let a Nirbhaya happen? And so many more. Will we let them become just another statistic while we move on with our lives? Let me this morning make this suggestion in all sincerity to all grown-ups, particularly the grown-ups sitting here. Can we make it a point in our lives from today, every day, for the rest of our lives, to talk to at least two persons about the horror of sexual attacks and gender equality, about respecting women? Is there a single woman born in this world who has not been subjected at some point in her life to what is frivolously dismissed as eve teasing? What is sport to one has been life to another. What if it had been my child? Would I be silent? I suppose I will never understand why a man has to rape a woman, sometimes children as young as 2 and 3 years old, just to feel like a man. And I have not even begun to speak about acid attacks. So to all the women sitting here, how long are you going to be a doormat? We let others, whether they be men or women, control our thoughts, control our actions, our lives. We even let them tell us what we should wear or how much we should eat. And we take umbrage under tradition, religion, and sentiment. Even with the advantage of a rational education. Yes, sir, I'll just finish. Even with the advantage of a rational education, we think we are not beautiful enough, that we should go willingly under the knife just so that somebody will say, "Oh, how lovely you look. Oh, how slim you look." You know, the average beauty queen wears so much makeup enough to clog a drain. So to all these questions, let me just conclude saying, I have no answers except to say, the answer, like Bob Dylan said, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. I'll end with a poem. The night air was still. The child sat with a swollen belly, who should have been playing hopscotch on the streets or munching mangoes stolen from the neighbor's yard. Was it love or the lust of drunken brutality? Mere indifference or greed or fear of a generation too old for procreation? She felt it turn in the wet warmth of the womb, the agony of midnight rapes, justified by sanctified thread. Like earthworms squirming or birds flying with clipped wings, the pains had come, the screams, the tears of tight hands and tight feet, and the birth began of another creature. She was a mother even before she was a child. Was it love or the lust of drunken brutality? Mere indifference or greed or fear of a generation too old for procreation? The night air was still, too still, too still. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clarama. In fact, unfortunately, we don't have time for interaction. I would have preferred to have at least 20 minutes for interaction. We are running short of time. Actually, the challenges Dr. Clarama had projected, they need a lot of introspection, and they also demand much more questions from you so that we get more and more clarified on these issues. But since time is short, I am pained to conclude this session. But now, society and gender, when you look at the issue, society is not something that is always outside us. There is a slice of the society always inside each one of us. That is the slice to which Claremma has asked and posed all the questions. What are we as individuals going to do about these challenges? Now I have certain questions for the boys here as someone who comes from the same species. The problem for the boy is this, very simple. At the age of 5, at the age of 10, I sit at home, somebody serves me food, they bring a plate, I just extend my hand, somebody pours water, they wash my hand, then somebody keeps the food ready for me. Sometimes I don't even have to mix rice with sambar, somebody does it already. And I simply eat, and after I eat, I again extend my hand, somebody pours water again to wash my hand, another hand gives me a towel, one hand belongs to my aunt, one hand belongs to my Periyamma, another hand is my sister, another hand is my mother, and I have been groomed like this till my 14th year or 15th year. Then I come to the class, I find somebody like Gayatri, she suddenly says she is equal to me. I am shocked, I am appalled. How is that you are equal to me? I have been pampered for 14 years by so many women in my home. Pampered all the time. I have never washed my plate. And I have never washed my clothes. Somebody has been doing it for me all this while. Now at the age of 14 and 15, another girl comes and tells me we are equal. But I think you can't be equal. So I start subjecting her to become my slave. This is the syndrome that is happening to every male in the society. So if we have to get out of this, we need to start all our changes inside the family, right from the family. So all the boys here, as a fellow boy, I have just one request at the end of this session. From today, when you go back home, wash your own plates, wash your own clothes, do all the domestic chores, take a broomstick, learn how to clean the house, take the kolam powder, learn how to do a kolam. All the girls, please, women, please bring up every male child like a female child. They used to traditionally say, bring up a girl like a boy. What I am advocating is, bring up every boy like a girl. Teach him to cook. Teach the boy to clean the house. Teach the boy to wash the clothes. Teach the boy to do kolam. So, teach all men the virtues of all these activities. And only then they learn to understand the equality of this work. And if you don't do, well, if you don't do this, very simple. It's going to be very simple. The girls of this world can lead lives on their own without boys being around. But the boys can never lead a life without girls being around. So if the boys don't start changing and transforming themselves to learning to respect other girls as equals, it is going to be the boys becoming losers and not the other way around. So the boys don't become losers, start gaining by becoming equals. Thank you.
It is customary to honor our guest in a special way as a token of our love and gratitude. I request Ms. Lata, Principal, SBOA Public School, Ernakulam, to present memento and saplings to Ms. Mini Krishnan, Editor, Translation, Oxford University Press. request you, ma'am, to present Dr. Clarama Jose, Department of English, Loyola College, with a memento and saplings. Thank you, ma'am. I kindly request you, madam, to honor Ms. Gayatri Venkat of SBOA Junior College with memento and saplings. Thank you, ma'am. May I now request ma'am to honor our moderator, Mr. Gnani Shankaran, writer, journalist, and playwright, with a memento and a sapling. Thank you, ma'am. The requirement is on lifelong learning on gender sensitization. The day is not far when both men and women will be ready to perceive each other's need and act in a more cohesive way to harness combined potential. I'm sure everyone would have been enlightened about a new perspective of gender and society. The second session will begin on education at 11:30 a.m. Thank you.